Hello and welcome to Bike Shedding. Today I'm going to pick a difficult topic because I'm trying to do something meta. The editor which I use generally is emacs, and obviously I've started using kiro. This video is made using kiro and everything, and kiro is great. It has that flow which everyone likes. I like the flow as well, the spec design, and then it generates a task list. So here's my question to myself. Is it possible to create something like this for Emacs? Let's say as a plugin. So I feel like I'll fail miserably at this, but let's see. Let's figure it out and see where we land. Instead of the spec, I'm going to vibe. I'll try to explore ideas and so on. Oh, a big shout out to Kiro's team. Today I received an email. This is for everybody who has been using Kiro this month. They've just launched paid plans on Kiro, and somehow their billing or the metering or however they count request was not working very well. So they've done an amazing job of communicating upfront and saying that you are free to use Kiro for the rest of the month, and they will refund August payment, which is great. So, which means we've got a lot more headroom. I have some thoughts copied. I'll say I want to create an Emacs plugin which will replicate Kiro code editor functionality of spec, design, and generate a task list. Emacs use Lisp is written in Lisp, and which is a flavor of Lisp programming language, and maybe code LLMs are not great at generating ellipse because nobody is writing ellipse anymore. I'm not going with a spec request, I'm going with a vibe request. I want to understand because I'm not really sure how this will all work. So I've thrown in some ideas. Let's see what happens. I'll remove this. Go for this. Okay, so well, it's not too bad. Create a major mode for spec file with syntax highlighting. I don't want that. I can use spec.md. Emac project management. File navigation. Yes, but what about the task? I think that is the most critical thing, but we can get there. Let's see what happens. Spec parsing and validation, task extraction from implementation, UI components. Okay. Okay, so before continuing to build, I'll clarify. So I don't think we need a new major mode. We can use markdown as formatting. We don't need new file types, so that's for sure. And also, can you break down this project into 3 phases? So the reason I'm doing this is because even if a single phase is successful, I think that's a win. End of first phase will be creation of a spec.md. The end of second phase will be creation of design.md, and then then the third phase will be the creation of task.md. So there. All right, so let's see what I see here. That would optimize for spec sessions. To start yes, I would want to do that. Thank you, Kiro. Using Markdown, keep simple. Okay, yes, that's what I want to do. Requirement to design, then design the task. I don't want to call it kiro. No, don't call it kiro. The reason is obviously I am borrowing for kiro from kiro, but there's also I'll post in the description. There's an earlier code gen LLM blog post which has kind of, I think, in my mind, inspired kiro. And it's also a general way of software development. So yes, while I'm heavily borrowing from kiro, obviously I'm not going to call it kiro because of multiple reasons, trademark being one of them. Let's call it protagonist. It's a play on Kiro, which is named after hero, I think, and it's like a play on the word hero. Pro- pro- I think there's a word play here. Let's call it proto agent, protagonist, protagentic, protagentic. Let's call it protagentic. Okay, let's go for that. Okay, protagentic it is. Much better name for your. Yes, I believe so. Create a aspect directory. Yes, I think I'm ready. What's your rough idea for the future? And get. Yes, exactly that. Okay, so Kiro has started doing its own requirement. .md. Let's see what happens and what it comes back with. Okay, quite exciting. So we do have a requirement now. Protagentic. I like the name. I made that, so proud of it. Protagentic. So sorry. Yet inside, in this era of things created by LLMs and things created by yourself, I think it's okay to be proud of things you have been creating through LLMs, without LLMs, and so on and so forth. It's a complex topic. Um, maybe it needs a more philosophical environment to discuss further on this. But for now, let's progress. I did use the name. I gave the name Protegentics. I'm proud of it, and maybe that's okay. But I think it's okay to start with something simple. Get a skeleton, and then okay, wow, it's researching emacs plugin architecture and REST. So this is what I mean by complex, right? So um, behind, so obviously what we are trying to replicate is a very thin layer of what Kiro's functionality is. There's a whole big program or some kind of intelligent system behind the veneer of this UI, which is then responsible for really creating very accurate requirement design and task and then executing those tasks. So let's be very clear. What we are trying to do is just a sliver, just a but that's going to be our starting point. Let's look at the design. And so these are the ELs, and I feel like this could be a good start. Obviously, debugging this is going to be a pain. These are the tasks. It is going to set up project structure, implement document template system, building. I'm quite impressed. Obviously, I've said that before, but it does look very useful. Even if we stop generating code from now on, it does give you a list of things you can go and start coding by hand, which obviously defeats the purpose of having such an intelligent system at your disposal. So I am going to finalize the task list. Okay, so Kiro tells me that this is done, and I asked whether this how do I use it, and I'm asking some question. The design I'm asking, will the design.md utilize spec.md? Does utilize this is how it will work. Will this be using any LLM? This is a bit annoying, so to speak, that you need sometimes Kiro tells you that the session is too long, and then the summarization is really long, and then you wait for it. So I've asked it to somehow utilize LLM, and it's saying that okay, now it's going to create a new requirement.md, or it's going to change the existing requirement.md. Ah, I see what Kiro has done. Kiro is taking this as a set of new feature requests. So in the first, so if you see Kiro specs, there are two folders now. The first one was creating the emacs plugin, and then it does all these things, and then the second one is requirement for the next phase, which is great. This is amazing. So this is like a change document, and it is taking care of the new set of requirements. Continue moving to the implementation plan and design proposed by Kiro to enhance with LLM options. So it is intelligently using the template generator and the LLM generator. I feel like it is doing the right thing, but we will find out pretty soon. It's great that it is already thinking of cost control and reliability. Start executing on the task. So it has come back and said that it has implemented everything, which is great. One hack which I could see in terms of making it more autonomous for executing all the tasks is after the first task or couple of tasks, if you ask it to continue executing the rest of the task, it does that for you, which is nice, especially when we are right now just trying to understand what this ID is capable of. Okay, so add to your init, I'll do all these things, and then we can go into emacs and see where we are at. I've configured my emacs with the new plugin. I was expecting a big crash. What it has come out with a simple warning that there is an error while loading. So what I'm going to do is just paste this error into Kiro and see what it does for us. Okay, so this is quite interesting. I'm still trying to run it on my emacs. There was a bunch of error and we were able to fix it, and I proceeded. Now when I try to run this command, which is there's a bunch of command which it gives, and create spec, I just want to say, check random things. Okay, so before I hadn't created a git repo or anything of that sort. I had not created a readme. This is quite interesting. The plugin is so well designed that there is a help as well. So once I was not able to create something, it gave me a help. Let's create a form to collect name and age. Okay. So there are a bunch of hiccups along the way. So when I'm trying to, for example, set up the LLM using the Emacs, things are working fine. So for example, it is giving me the prompt to enter the key and so on and so forth. But then when it's trying to save something, there are errors cropping up. So far, there are two stages of error. The first one was on load. We were facing there's a very minor error one in one file. There was a parenthesis hell, and we were not able to match the bracket or the parentheses. That was fixed. It took a bit of back and forth, but it was fixed. And now we are trying to fix another problem where I'm trying to save OpenAI API keys and it's not able to save. But that should be all. Obviously, it's part of the game. We are going to get errors like these, and at this point in time, even if we get a spec file generated through emacs as a plugin, I think that's a win. And yeah, let's see where we are at. Okay, finally, we were able to save our configuration. Now I'm going to test the next feature. So since I am facing multiple issues, which is obviously expected, I am going to say to Kiro, can you create a thorough testing strategy and test each functionality? For example, test each command like you would run from emacs. Make sure all functionality work. I wanted to highlight how it is trying to debug issues. So for example, when I'm running create spec functionality in emacs, I'm getting a problem such as, I'll show you the error statement is symbols value as variable is void. So it has understood perfectly well that this is the problem, and it is trying to write localized test cases and still trying to fix the issue. To be honest, it's really impressive, and it's also educating me in the process. So this is the terminal. It is running these localized, running the emacs command and trying to run localized test cases and trying to reproduce the problem. And it is able to reproduce the problem, and it's trying to figure out if there is a way it can fix it. So this is not your usual coding environment. Obviously, this is not something which we use, or I don't write a lot of Lisp. It's only when I need to tweak a plugin or tweak a functionality or write, add some small uh, editor tweaks to my Emacs. That's when I go and write something like this. So, but even for such an environment, it is highly impressive that it is able to fully support a workflow. I believe we have some functionality working. So after wrestling with Kiro for a while, um, I will show you. So what I want to do is I want to create a spec. I will say create form or something like that. Create a form to collect name and age. Obviously very simple. We're just testing a spec. Um, let's say web app or something like that, and I'll say LLM. Voila, we have a spec file. But as you can see, the spec file is definitely not coming from an LLM. There's no intelligence. It looks like it is picking up a template and just adding the introduction here and the additional context. But apart from that, it looks very templatey. But let's take a pause here and appreciate that we've come a long way in a really short time. I have never written a plugin. I would never know by myself how to even start writing a plugin. Obviously, I can go and look at the documents and so on, but since I've not done it before, I think this is a great halfway point already. At this point in time, I can go deep dive into the code, figure out what it is doing, and start doing actual useful things. At this point in time, even if we stop here, this has already accelerated my development. No questions asked, right? But I do believe Kiro has a lot to give further, and we are going to continue pushing it. at first it understands that this is under these conditions this is going to happen, which is great. um, yes, and it recognizes that okay, so it's from a template, and it can see the issue because LLM is not configured. One thing which I found with Kiro, that just too many times it has to stop the session and summarize the whole previous session and then start a new session, which kind of breaks the flow, and I need to repeat myself. uh, so I've probably done that 10 times in this whole project, which is probably not great. So I'll show you my usage. um, So for now, I've already used 100 vibe request, specs 33 are used, and from my own plan, 13 are used and zero spec request used. But I've got only 58 covered in plan. This and they have also reset my limit, so I do have some overhead. Sorry, some room, but not sure for how long. It is quite expensive. If I blow through this in couple of projects in 3-4 days, then it's probably too expensive. But we'll figure that out. So far, I'm quite impressed by whatever we have received from Kiro. Obviously, this has been a journey, and this has taken quite a bit of back and forth. All right, finally, the moment of truth has arrived, and I'm going to test. So far we've been doing a lot of back and forth, trying to figure out what's working, what's not working. But for now, I'll do the end to end of how to add this package to my emacs and whether it is working or not. So let's take a look into that. Um, First step is that if you see this is my emacs configuration.org, I use a literate programming style to maintain my the configuration of the emacs itself, which means that there are document and code in the same file, and when emacs starts up, it extracts code from this document and then executes. So what I've done is I've added to the list the load path of the new Emacs plugin. The name of the Emacs plugin is Prot Agentic, and I've said require Prot Agentic. What I'll do now is I'll kill the previous daemon and restart a new daemon. The editor itself. So before we start, I'd like to show you the directory structure of the code itself. There's nothing in it. So there's a git file, check.readme. The reason I've created this is because might have seen earlier how if you don't have a working project directory, the plugin itself will tell you that no, we need a project directory. And the way it is deducing that it is a project directory is by, let's say, a readme file or a git repo. Well, I created that. Now I'm going to show you what happened, right? So the next step is I am going to say prot agentic create spec, right? And I want to choose something simple. So I'll start with really simple spec. What I want to do is create a form that collects name and address. So I'll say create user detail form. Okay. What create a web form that collects name and address. That's it. And I'll say web and mobile as my constraint. And I'll say a hybrid approach. So the difference between these three modes are LLM would probably be a kind of a YOLO mode where there might not be a structure or a structure imposed by the LLM itself. Template is just a empty template of spec created in your directory. That's not what you want. And a hybrid mode is a mixture of both the template and LLM. So you tell the LLM that you need the spec written in this format. So we're going to choose the hybrid. And now if you see it going into to OpenAI and trying to get, if you see here, it's trying to get the spec file created. And what I'm expecting is by end of it, you will have a spec dot or requirement.md first. So here it is, requirement.md, and it is good enough. So as a user, I want to input my name in the web form. There are a bunch of acceptance criteria. I want to address, then I want it to be responsive and compatible. I want my post to be handled securely. That's great. And I want to provide a log for all. So these are functional and non-functional requirements written down. So this is great. Now, what I can do next with this is to create a design. So I'll go and say prot agentic create or generate design. So design, that's what we want to do, and we'll still choose the hybrid mode and we'll wait for it to come back. What I'm expecting at this point in time is that at the end of this operation there should be a design.md which informs our use of technology and whatnot, and we have, right? So it says the technology stack, the system architecture is a traditional 3-tier. Then you have technology stack, front-end, back-end, database, form component, back-end API, and so on and so forth. But I don't want React. I'll say plain HTML. I'll say HTML and JS. I don't want Node and Express. I'll say Golang. I don't want MongoDB. I'll say SQLite, just to keep things simple. And that's pretty much it. Don't see any problem anywhere else. There's a strategy for everything, including testing. So I'll just save this. Say generate task. So generate task, and I will say hybrid. And again, at the end of this, I am expecting a task.md in which there, just like how it is in Kiro, I want a systematic list of tasks generated for this particular feature. And this is what I asked. This is what I have been asking Kiro to develop, and it has done it. It has done it very well. I've tested it multiple times. It works pretty well. I did have to do the spec flow is so I did have to do a bit of back and forth, telling Kiro what is not working, what is working, asking it to write some tests. It did everything beautifully, and at the end of it, it has given me what I needed, and not in so much time, right? So now we have a task list. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to end it here in terms of getting a task list. But the next step could very well be using this task list to generate more code, getting files back, creating those files, and so on and so forth. Just like it has been able to create task.md, I can ask for each of this. I can ask for output back from the LLM, and I believe it is going to do so. So, and I can think of a way of executing these tasks autonomously as well, or maybe I can say execute task 1, task 2, task 3 because they're clearly labeled, and I don't see a big problem going from here to generating actual code. But what I wanted to do in this past part of this video is to understand if we are able to replicate Kiro like functionality in Emacs, and apparently you can. So happy me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.